insurrection, obstruction, indictments, civilly liable for sexual abuse. The one man responsible for all that could be sitting in a prison cell on election day and still be elected commander-in-chief for these United States. That man is beholden to Putin, weakened NATO the last time around, and is currently tying himself to wealthy Saudi oil money. He enriched himself when government stated his properties. He campaigned on wanting to use government to go after his political rivals and wants to expand executive power. If Donald Trump is re-elected, our nation is lost. So let's roll up our sleeves, get to work, and tell the MAGA folks no more before it's too late. Coming at you from New Orleans, Louisiana. You can't join the conversation via phone right now because Blog Talk Radio is down. So no Blog Talk Radio today apparently. So we'll just be doing comments via the chat. So if you want to interject your comments, otherwise leave your let your feelings be known or ask questions, just do so via the chat, either on liberaldanradio.com, which brings you to the YouTube channel, or on twitch.tv/liberaldanradio, which of course is the Twitch channel. Both are valid ways to get there, and we monitor both of those chats as we go along. If you want to support the show, there's many different ways to do so. You can do so for free. Follow on Twitch. Subscribe on YouTube. If you have Amazon Prime, you can subscribe on Twitch for free. Otherwise, it's like $5. You can purchase bits on Twitch. You can be a liberal Danimal for as little as $2 on YouTube. Higher levels also exist. You could also do super chats, super stickers, etc. You can support the games that I am promoting over on nerdydan.com. You can also subscribe to the youtube.com/nerdydan.com as well. Nerdydan, DOTCOM, if you want to help me out that way as well. One of the games, I'm going to be posting a link to the game in both chats in a second. We'll pin it in a second too, so it doesn't get lost in the shuffle. For some reason, I don't know why I was playing the audio from the file itself instead of having it come through Blog Talk Radio, which to me would improve the quality of the audio, but unfortunately it seemed to be like stuttering along the way. Probably just means that I need a new computer. So, but that's not happening anytime in the near future because I have lots of expenses to deal with currently, between the issues pertaining with my the cremation and ceremonies for my mother-in-law, which I'm happy to take care of. I'm not happy that I have to take care of it, but it's it's something that has to be done. And then we had the water heater bust. I have a physical therapy company that I went to back in December of 2022, and that physical therapy company wanted to charge me $170. This is another thing that's wrong with the U.S. healthcare system. I don't know if I talked about this last time or not. I know I talked about the life as an obese person when it comes to medicine, but here's another issue that is just got me all frustrated. That I go to the doctor on December 22nd of 2022, and that doctor gives me a referral to go to physical therapy because Medicaid and I need to get referrals to go see physical therapy. Fine. All's well and good as far as I know. I go to physical therapy later that day because, well, I can. I have the time to do so I'm just going to go ahead and do it. Well, some idiot be it an idiot from my doctor's office or the idiot from physical therapy, used the wrong coding information, and Medicaid denied the second claim. I don't know why my doctor's office and my physical therapist would be using different codes, because I went to the doctor's office to be told that I should go to seek physical therapy, and then I went to the physical therapist to get the physical therapy. So it should be two different types of codes. There's lots of different codes out there. But because they happen to use the same damn code, they denied the payment, the insurance denied the payment to my physical therapist. And then 18 months later, out of the blue, I got a bill in the mail for $170 that I'm currently not planning on paying. I'm letting this whole situation resolve itself before we actually have to start arguing about what is reasonable and fair. So here's a hint. If you ever have to deal with physical therapy, and you're not going to, you can't guarantee that they won't use different codes, the billing codes, go on different days. Like when your doctor signs you a referral, don't go the same day. Because if I just would have waited a day to go see the physical therapist, it would have been fine and there would have been no issue. But there is an issue. So it is what it is. And because we have Blog Talk Radio, I can't play It Is What It Is because I don't have that there, and I don't know if I have that sound readily available somewhere on my laptop. So I'm going to have to do the Donald Trump It Is What It Is all by myself. It is what it is, or whatever. So, anywho. So that's a little rant. So if you wanted an early rant for, I don't know if it's necessarily, it is I'm a fat man and it's a rant, so maybe it does qualify as a fat man rant. However, it's just frustrating. Like, I'm having to deal with all this other stuff, and then all of a sudden, well, guess what? Here's $170 more bucks that they want me to pay. I'm like, yeah, no, that's not happening right now. Sorry about that, but no. Let's see, what else? What else to intro show? Just say anywho, Dan. Anywho. That's just what I say, I guess. It's one of my things that I say or do. That's a good name. It is what it is. Thank you. But you have to remember, the reason I play the It Is What It Is clip, the reason that we do that is because it's always good to remember how horrible of a person Donald Trump is when it comes to when it came to the pandemic. Because when he was asked about the deaths that was going on, he was like, it is what it is. How can you ever even think of wanting to let that person back into the presidency? And I'm not talking to the people who are the MAGA idiots who are never going to vote against him, even if he grabbed their own mothers, grandmothers, sisters, daughters by the hoo-ha. They'd make excuses for him doing that, right? I'm talking to the people who are not going to vote for Donald Trump, but who might vote third party or might stay home and vote because they have a problem with Biden doing whatever it is that Biden's doing, as if it wouldn't be significantly worse under Trump. Again, we've talked about this part before. I'll repeat it again. I think it bears repeating almost every episode. If you don't like, for example, how Biden's handling the Palestinian getting bombed by Netanyahu, and I don't agree with Netanyahu at all. I've disagreed with Netanyahu since well before 10/7, and it's just, I've said it will get much worse for the Palestinians if Trump gets elected, because Trump will sit there and applaud Netanyahu and pat him on the back and say, good job. But these people are like, well, how could it get worse for the people who are Palestinians living in Gaza, who are not part of Hamas, who are just suffering under the thumbs of Hamas and, because of Netanyahu? And I'm like, you lack imagination. It will absolutely get worse for the people in Gaza if Trump becomes elected. And it'll get worse for other people across the globe. The Ukrainians, NATO, people living close to Russia. Trump will just let Putin steamroll over Ukraine if he had the opportunity to, because he's beholden to Putin. So if you don't like what's happening to the Palestinian people, which I don't, you have to recognize the fact that it's going to get much worse for a lot more people if Trump gets reelected. So sitting by and doing nothing is not an option. Not an option whatsoever. Yes, Big Hook, I was going to talk about the Arizona indictments and the fake electors. That's part of what we were going to discuss today as well. There's that. There's Supreme Court hearings over emergency abortions. All sorts of stuff to talk about today. Just wanting a few more people to straggle on in before we start getting to the meat of the issues. We do have 17 viewers and 10 likes, so remember to smash the like button before you smash the patriarchy. So we will go over who is getting indicted in the fake electors election scheme in Arizona or what have you. Hurry back, Aaron. Don't turn back too hard, I guess. Ignore the words out of his mouth and judge him on his policy and achievements. Wait, who? Trump? Are you talking about Trump? It's not the words out of his mouth. I mean, the words out of his mouth are horrible. Like, you could just move on him you could just move in him on like a bitch and grab him by the pussy. Those words? Yeah, those words aren't okay. It's apologia for rape. But the problem is it's not a matter of sticks and stones. It's a matter of policy. Hundreds of thousands of people died during COVID that didn't need to because Donald Trump didn't want to handle it properly. He wanted to reduce testing. Remember when he said in Tulsa, where he killed Herman Cain? Where Herman Cain got COVID and died? Remember what he said there? He was like, slow down. When you don't have testing, when you have less testing, you have less cases. No, wrong, idiot. I mean, how could you be that dumb and be president? I mean, we've seen dumb presidents before. I mean, we had and vice presidents too. We had Mr. Potato with Dan Quayle. We had George W. Bush, who, it's a horrible thing to lose one's mind or not to have a mind. This is sad, or whatever it is that he said. What was it? We've had, Tyrion Lannister from Game of Thrones. It was like, we've had horrific kings and we've had stupid kings, but I don't think we've had horrific idiot kings or whatever like that. But then he got the joy of slapping Joffrey instead. And nobody has gotten the joy of doing that to Donald, I guess. Unless it's Melania who did it. I don't know. Or maybe he paid some Russian hooker to do it. But the point of the matter is, it's not a matter of sticks and stones. It's not a matter of the fact that he's unprofessional. It's not a matter of the fact that he's crude and crass. It's a matter of the fact that he thinks that if you have less testing, you have less cases, which is BS. You have the cases regardless of whether or not they're tested or not. Those people are infected with COVID regardless of whether or not you give them a test to see if they're infected with COVID. By not responding to this virus properly, not only did he cause hundreds of thousands of extra Americans to die, he also made it so that the economy suffered more than it needed to. Because I'm firmly embrace the idea that if we had a robust testing program, if we would have as a country gotten together and gotten accurate tests done quickly, and would have just done testing robustly across the country, we could have been like, hey, we don't have to do a nationwide shutdown of everything. We could have done targeted shutdowns of, hey, here you go. Here, it's currently spiking in New York City. We're gonna do shutdown for New York City for 2 weeks. But that doesn't mean we have to do a shutdown of everything for however many weeks. But because he refused to do very simple things that are common sense, because those things are, he probably embraces the simple, but he doesn't embrace common sense. We couldn't have that sort of thing because he was afraid of the optics of how many positive cases that there are or were. But in reality, had we done robust testing, maybe we might have seen that perhaps it wasn't as deadly as we thought. Maybe he could have if he also lacks imagination. Lots of people lack imagination in politics. If he would have had a robust testing and he would have found all of the people who have COVID at any given time with a highly robust testing program, he could have been like, look, the death rate is this instead of what we're anticipating, because we're only comparing deaths per cases for the death rate as opposed to, or I guess, deaths per cases that have been revealed via testing. If we would have revealed more cases of people who just had it and were carrying it and were asymptomatic, then maybe it would have brought the death rate down. This doesn't justify the amount of people that died, but he could have made it look better. And we could have said, hey, we're accomplishing this, and we're getting a good look as to how COVID is affecting this country by embracing the science. But no, he doesn't embrace the science. He embraces vaginas non-consensually. Chad Bostic, I remember him being mocked for shutting down flights of the country, while Dem said COVID was nothing wherever the first started. Yeah, I remember a lot of things from the first days. Why do we believe that Donald Trump was mocked when it came down to COVID-19 and his reaction to it when it comes to shutting down the flights? The health experts of the entire world were like, these things don't work because the cases are likely already here. And they were already here. Everybody was like, oh, we have 13 cases in February. No, we had many more cases than that. We just didn't have the tests to show that they existed. It came out later that people likely had COVID in the United States November and December of 2019. But we didn't catch it yet. So banning the flights was too late. Furthermore, since he was calling it the China virus, he was calling it that, and he was insisting on being racist when referring to the virus, and there were people who were being assaulted who were Asian, let alone not Chinese, but any Asian person who was seen, people were attacking them because they were afraid because he was calling it the China virus, even though a lot of our cases came from Europe, because we didn't block down travel from Europe, we just blocked travel from China. How ridiculous that we didn't recognize that, but because we had a stupid president who didn't know what to do and wouldn't trust these experts on what to do. And furthermore, why would I believe that his Chinese flight ban was bigoted? Well, maybe because he campaigned on a total complete ban of Muslims entering the country. Maybe because he campaigned that Mexico was sending murderers and rapists across the border towards us. Because he campaigned on xenophobia and racism. So if you campaign for president on a platform that is centralized on xenophobia and racism to rile up your part of your base, which includes many anti-Semites, bigots, racists, etc., why am I going to believe that you're banning travel from one particular country is going to not be at least somewhat influenced by the racism that you used during the campaign? Actually, the virus is called COVID-19. That's what the virus is called. Now, some people did refer to the Spanish flu as the Spanish flu, sure, but there are many other viruses that are just referred to, like the swine flu. Swine is not a place in the earth. It's just swine flu, bird flu. Lots of viruses that are the colloquialisms that we refer to viruses as have nothing to do with countries. Yes,
Maybe they'll name it after the places that have the biggest deaths. Maybe they might get that might be what causes people to name things like the Spanish flu. But when you're Trump and you already have a penchant for bigotry, calling it the China virus is going to rile up your idiot base even more. Those that are racist, xenophobic, bigoted, anti-Semitic, etc. And then, again, why would we believe otherwise? When somebody tells you who they are, you believe them. Yeah, SARS-CoV-2 or whatever, but it's also COVID-19. My daughter and her boyfriend had it early January. I also had it in January. I was feeling terrible. I went to I was like 3 days in. I went to the doctor because I was feeling better by the end of the day, and then I would wake up maybe I'll wake up fine, but I felt like crap at the end of every day. So at the end of 3 days, I went to urgent care, and I was like, "Hey, I'm feeling really sick. What's going on?" They told me that because of my symptoms, which, matched most of what people with I've never had the loss of taste, but most of the symptoms matched exactly what COVID symptoms were. But at the time, they couldn't have diagnosed it as COVID-19. They didn't know that much enough about it to be able to say that I had COVID. But it's very highly, highly likely that at the end of January 2020, I had COVID because the doctor flat out told me, you were sick, you have a virus, but it's not the flu. Well, what could it have been then? Seems like it was COVID-19, and I'm one of the first people that caught it in this area, I believe. And then Mardi Gras became a super spreader because we held Mardi Gras while COVID was spreading like wildfire. Now, at the time, we have like 13, cases that were verified, but that's just because, again, 13 cases that were verified, that doesn't mean that there are only 13 cases, period. It just means that there are 13 cases that were verified. So yeah, I thought Kung Flu was comical, but I didn't see it as being racist. I guess I just grew up at a different time. I grew up in a different time. I'm freaking almost 48. Yeah, 48. I'll be 48 in less than a month. I grew up at a time, where, we had Andrew Dice Clay as a popular comedian when I was a kid. That's the type of comedy that existed when I was a kid. Andrew Dice Clay. Chad, also there wasn't enough tests for everyone at the beginning. And also the first tests that came out were flawed. But he could have focused and doubled down and tried to get more testing. But the reason why we didn't have enough testing, we found out later, was because Donald Trump doesn't want testing. He didn't want testing. He wanted to slow down testing. That's inexcusable. If you believe in science at the least bit. He's sitting there in Tulsa, Oklahoma, telling people that if you reduce the testing, if you test less, you have less cases. You have fewer cases. No, dummy. Donald, dummy Donald. Double dummy dumb Donald, or whatever you want to call it, because he loves using names. Why don't you call him a name too? I don't know. If you reduce the tests, all you're doing is burying your head in the sand and refusing to see the truth for what it is. But even back earlier in the virus period, and when we were doing the lockdowns, when he had the interviews with Woodward, he admitted to Woodward that he downplayed the threat of COVID-19. I don't know why I have to keep saying this stuff. This is stuff I've talked about on the podcast before. But he literally admitted to Woodward that he likes to downplay the threats. Because again, he didn't like the optics of what it might look like if he's president during a very threatening virus. But he flat out admitted to Woodward that it was much worse than the flu, while telling us that it was no worse than the flu. You think he was influenced more towards spending resources towards vaccines and warp speed? Well, the first vaccine that came out had nothing to do with warp speed. And yes, but we're a big enough and powerful enough and rich enough country where we can do multiple things at the same time. We can walk and chew gum. We could have been having a group of people working on getting vaccines out the door. Of course, by the time Biden became president and the vaccines were ready, there was no distribution network set up by Trump. What good does it do if you create the vaccines if you then have no way to disperse them to the population? Yes, Eazy-E, absolutely. Woodward waited too long to go public. I 100% agree with you with that. But yes, Mish, exactly. He said no more testing because of the optics. Exactly. He did not want the optics of having more cases being reported out there while he was running for re-election. He wanted to artificially reduce the amount of cases that we were seeing so he wouldn't look bad as a president. His re-election was more important than saving people's lives. Which is one of the many reasons why I will firmly state that he is responsible for the deaths of hundreds of thousands of Americans. Because he did not know how to handle a virus, an outbreak, and nor did he trust any of his advisors. And he thinks that you could, inject disinfectant. That was in my memories in either today or yesterday. I was like, my tweet back then was, maybe if we told the MAGA conservatives that all disinfectants have thimerosal in them, maybe they won't listen to Trump and won't want to inject it in their bloodstreams. And I'm wondering, everybody believed in 2022 that the Republicans were going to do much better, but they didn't. And part of the reason that the Republicans didn't do as well as they could have done in a midterm election, as the party that's not in power typically does during midterm elections in the first term of a presidency, which doesn't make any sense at all. If you came out and voted and wanted to make sure that policies got finished by electing a Democratic Congress and electing a Democratic president, makes no frickin' sense to then not show up or to vote for somebody else just 2 years in, because there's no way you were getting everything you wanted done. But, that's silly. But people are silly. Completely. Let's see, hold on. Let's cut that for a second. He saw himself as number one, but tied that success to the success. But the success of the country, but if you manipulate the metrics of the success of the country, is it really successful? He's manipulating the numbers to see, so we can't see how many people were sick of COVID. He's manipulating the numbers so that he can't be blamed for how many positive cases there are. When in reality, a person who is president should be the first one out there trying to make sure that he saves lives of people. Say what you like about Biden, but Biden was wanting to do whatever he could to save the lives of everybody when he came to the office. He was wanting to put the shots in the arms of conservatives just as much as he wanted to put shots in the arms of liberals. He wants to help conservative areas get broadband, despite the fact that they're not going to use the broadband to get, real information, or the actual information that they get is going to probably be harmful to his campaign. But he wants to make sure that people have access to the information. It's like day and night looking at these two. You could argue that Biden is manipulating the numbers for a strong economy. I mean, there are some things that you could say, like at the beginning of the Biden administration, if you want to say that some of his job numbers of the greatest economic comeback is in part because of the fact that we were shut down and a lot of people lost their jobs, that's probably true. It's a true statement. But why was it so bad? It was so bad because Trump was a horrible president. Chad, you probably believe that it's Biden that was responsible for the hike in gas prices. Yeah, Mish, Biden doesn't create the numbers when it comes to the economy, but Biden gets the benefit of getting an economy when the economy is opening back up after lockdowns or whatever you want to call them, but it's colloquially it's called lockdowns. So people were starting to get jobs back, and so yes, he gets the benefit. He gets to claim the numbers of all of the people who got new jobs, but we actually got more jobs than what we had at the beginning. Part of that is because Democrats believe in spending things on things like infrastructure. So he wants to put people to work. I don't believe Biden is responsible for gas price hikes. Well, good. Hey, Jojo Mojo, good to see you. Now, do you believe that Donald Trump is responsible for the gas price hikes? You probably say no to that too. Easy. Gas went up to the same price as when Trump took office, basically by 2021. The problem, though, is that, as I've talked about on the show before, is Donald Trump, during COVID, we all remember that demand for gasoline was so low, demand for oil was so low, that there was a point where people were paying you to take oil, to store oil, because they had an extreme surplus. Gas prices dropped down forever. You'll see posts by conservatives on Facebook that are like, "Oh, I miss these gas prices." Really? You miss the gas prices that were taking place during the part of a pandemic where everyone's staying, where most of the people were staying home and being responsible? That's what you miss? You miss that too? But again, Donald Trump negotiated a deal with OPEC and Russia to artificially restrict the production of oil by millions of barrels a day. Why? Because that would stabilize the price and would potentially protect American oil producers who were suffering because of that. And I'm not saying that in and of itself is bad. What I'm saying is that he made the deal go into 2022, into the next term, and B, he didn't have any sort of escape clause from it, where it basically says, okay, you can start producing oil again if demand starts shooting up. But no, he artificially restricted supply with this deal that he made. So much for the art of the deal. And then demand shot back up because people started going back out and going to work, going to do other things with their lives because the CDC said it was safer to do so now that we have vaccines, now that we had a better understanding of how to protect ourselves. So when you have an artificially restricted supply of a good and a spiking demand of a good, guess what happens? The price spikes and the consumers suffer. And nobody is talking about this. It just baffles me why nobody is talking about this. Everybody's like, I blame Biden for that. No, Biden's not to blame for the gas prices. It was Trump's stupid so-called art of the deal making that ruined our pocketbooks, our wallets, etc. Hey, Cynthia, what's going on? Hey, Metis, Kevin Anderson, good to see you again. Yeah, some people didn't re-enter the job market because they were dead. Exactly. I'm agreeing with you, Chad, for at least a little bit when it goes, we got more jobs because people quit during the pandemic and then re-entered the workforce, and a lot of those reported jobs were seasonal jobs. The numbers weren't as prolific as they seem, all administrations. But yeah, all administrations benefit from the ridiculousness that is the unemployment calculation. Like, if if you have a bunch of people in the workforce and like 1 million of them lose their unemployment benefits, they're no longer counted as one of the counts that are there. So the actual unemployment percentage drops because the people left the workforce, because they are assumed to have quit looking for a job because they're no longer having benefits. Even though I know when I ran out of benefits one time and I was not having a job, I still was looking for work because I wanted to be able to work and survive and, you know, feed myself. But that's how they refer to it in the way that's easier, I guess, for people to understand, is that those people gave up. So they left the workforce because they no longer have benefits. It's BS, but it's the way we calculate it for everybody. So one of the things is that we can't give one president credit for those numbers in the way that they are, and then try and make excuses for another president while using the same figures. That happens all the time in politics. People will say, oh, the Biden numbers are inflated because of XYZ, but they'll never say, oh, these numbers are inflated also because of XYZ when it's a Republican president. I'm not saying you specifically, Chad, but I'm not saying that this particularly is you, but we have people who want to, you know, rah for one guy when the numbers benefit him, even though they're using the same system as the other person, and then they want to say, you don't know what you're talking about to the other guy, what's the other guy's fault. So at the end of the day, you still have to use, if we're using those flawed numbers when it comes to unemployment, we're using the same metric for everybody. So we should understand why it's flawed, but it's still the same playing field for everybody, unless somebody's trying to switch the playing field up, in which case that should be brought up. But all presidents get the benefit of when that happens. And there's the other side of the coin, is, do we believe that it would have gotten better under Trump? Maybe, maybe not. You don't know. Hey, Alarasia, good to see you. And yeah, you get credit for what happens when you're president. You do. And you're supposed to get the blame for when it happens when you're president too. For what happens when you're president. What happened, and so Donald Trump should get plenty of blame for the deaths that took place because of him. And many of the deaths that took place from Donald Trump is because he refused to act responsibly. I don't want to sit behind the Resolute desk wearing a mask. It wouldn't look right. Again, more optics. You shouldn't be leading with optics. You're not acting presidential if optics are what moves you. And say what you want about Joe Biden. Say what you want about President Biden. I don't believe that he is an individual who solely worries about the optics when it comes down to what decisions he's going to make, especially when it's like life or death issues. Why do I believe this? Well, A, I can look at what he says and what he does, and B, I trust the fact that my grandparents, who unfortunately passed away too early to see him become president, worked on his initial campaign, knew him, lived right around the corner from him in Wilmington, Delaware, and they gushed always about how good of a good moral person that he was. So I trust my grandparents on the issue of Joe Biden's morality more than most other people out there. So see, Agov, if you think the jobs added under Biden belong to Trump, then the jobs added under Trump belong to Obama. I mean, there you go. That also is the case, where you know there are things that are lagging indicators as well. There are certain issues that are lagging indicators, but yes, the buck stops at the president's desk, good or bad, except for the fact that it didn't when Trump was president. Trump tried to put it off on everybody else, and he didn't want to take any responsibility for what was going on, including not wanting to look at the numbers properly. just ask yourself, if you think Donald Trump handled COVID well, ask yourself why he didn't want to test. Why, when the Tulsa rally came around, why he admitted that he wanted to not test, and why he wanted to stop the testing, slow down the testing. Why would anybody want to do that? Is there a good reason to want to no longer test or have less testing? No, there's not. I mean, look, I'm open-minded enough to say, hey, I might read something in chat that says, oh, here's something I've never thought of. And if you give me something that I've never thought of as for a good reason why Donald Trump would say no more testing, that would make sense, that wasn't nefarious, I'll have to agree with you, because you would make a logical, cogent argument that would be irrefutable in my eye. Am I likely to, is anybody likely to do that in the chat? Probably not, but I'm still open to the idea, because one should always be open to the idea that one is wrong. On any issue. If you're going to have an honest debate on politics. I've been citing a bunch of the same articles over and over and over again when it comes to why Donald Trump was responsible for the hike in gas prices with this shitty deal that he made with OPEC and Russia. If somebody came along and gave me a link and said, here's this information that shows why that's incorrect, I'll read it. And if I'm wrong, I'll say, mea culpa. I had it wrong. I've been saying the wrong thing this whole time. Unfortunately, something else that came up in my Facebook memories is the fact that I'm right too much. I'm right about how things are going to go too much of the time. It's scary how right I am about things when it comes to politics. You know, there was the Donald Trump could name up to 3 Supreme Court justices. That's why we need to not elect him in 2016, because Roe v. Wade could then be under threat if he got to name 3 Supreme Court justices. Oh, Dan, you're stupid. That would never happen. Trump's not going to name 3 Supreme Court justices. Never, ever, ever will he do that. Did he do it? Abso-frickin-lutely. Trump's number one prerequisite for his running mate is their willingness to grant him a pardon. I'm sure that's the case. I don't know if that's actually been verified or not, but I'm sure that is absolutely the case. Oh, that's not what I want to do. I want to... Stupid. One of the things that the mobile app is better about when it comes to... is go into your memories right quickly. But I'm just going to scroll on my phone a second to see about... today my memories sucked, apparently. Lots of horrible things in my memories. This is the post about maybe conservatives will reject real Trump if we tell them that disinfectant has thimerosal in it. Let's see, what else? Where is the thing about me being right? Because I had a list, and the list of things that I was right on this thing was included things that I'd forgotten about. I had forgotten about these things that I predicted that came true as well. So that's how scary it sometimes can be when I start predicting things correctly, because I know how this country works and I pay attention. Let's see. No. That's not it. Where is it? Maybe it was yesterday. Maybe it was yesterday's memories. Because today I'm not seeing it. Oh well. I'll probably find it like 2 minutes after I end the show, because that's how it works. That's how it rolls sometimes. See, Steve asks a question. I'll be interesting. The next inauguration, no matter who, if they do change the words to include support the Constitution, are the words allowed to be changed? The words are not allowed to be changed because the oath that the president takes is specifically listed in the Constitution, which is why during, I think, when Roberts swore in Biden and there was some kerfuffle, they had to redo the swearing in afterwards just to make sure that Biden took the correct oath of office. So, am I the only one surprised that the Resolute desk from Oval Office isn't sitting at Mar-a-Lago now? Not at all. I wouldn't be surprised to find out that he took the desk and then replaced it with a fake, kind of like the Declaration of Independence in those movies. See, Hal and I think even you might have said that Trump thought COVID-19 would hit the Democratic areas already suffering and take them out, and finally was notified his cult was hit too because of a mask. It was Kushner, I think, that was the one that said that you had that they wanted to let COVID hit the Democratic areas to harm the Democrats. So they could be benefited in the next elections. And in reality, at the beginning, it did affect the Democratic areas more. Why? Because Republicans tend to live in more rural areas, which is why they love to use the look at how much land is red, and don't take into consideration population density. Look how popular Republicans are. All this area of the country votes red. But, most of that area is like cows and chickens and pigs, not referring to the people. But yes, at the very beginning, especially black people, or more likely, black people specifically, Democrats in general, more likely to be living in urban areas, more likely to be put in tightly, more densely packed areas. And if you're a black family, you're more likely to be living in some sort of public housing, establishment or building or what have you, that's going to, mean that you're closer to people. You're more, and at the very beginning, black people were suffering from the pandemic more than anybody else because of the close living conditions that come with public housing. And Kushner was like, cool. I'm sure Trump was like, cool too, because you're like, ooh, they're going to lose their voters. But then once the vaccines came out, that all flipped. Now, because you had the people in those areas who wanted the vaccine because they wanted to protect themselves. And then you had the people in the conservative areas refuse the vaccine because they're idiots. And when I say refuse the vaccine, it implies that there was a choice of taking the vaccine or not. There are some people for whom taking a vaccine is not a choice. There are some people who can't take the vaccine. And that's fine. I'm not judging people who biologically are prevented from taking a vaccine. It is the responsibility of everybody else to take the vaccines to help get herd immunity to prevent those people from getting sick in the first place. But yet all the Republicans refused to take the vaccines, and then the death rates flipped. And in those Republican areas, like every one person that died in a Democratic area, 5 died in a Republican area. Why? Because they refused to mask, they refused to socially distance, they refused to take the vaccine. So, Tim Farrell, would a Resolute desk fit in, say, a large coffin? Probably not the one that fit Ivana, if that's what you're saying. Easy E, no doubt Roberts did that to mess with Biden. If it was Alito, maybe. I don't give Roberts, there's the 5 conservatives that are the solid block conservatives, and then there's Roberts. I think Roberts is, for as much as I disagree with him on the Supreme Court, on his opinions for the most part, now some obviously I do agree with, but Roberts, of all the people, is the one who's willing to try and protect stare decisis as much as possible. Roberts is one of the people who I think actually wants the court to be seen as having integrity. whereas the other 5 don't give a rat's ass about whether or not the court has integrity or not. So, see, like the joke Hal makes about cattle voting. Republicans vote cattle, Democrats vote people. Well, maybe Republicans vote like cattle, they're just herded, and they go moo at the voting at the voting. Whatever. There may, I don't know about the death rates of people with COVID as compared to sickle cell. I don't know if sickle cell anemia had how much it had an effect on people dying of COVID. It may very well, there may very well be something there, but I think it's more because of the fact that the dense population as compared. Now, it's possible that if you already had a pre-existing condition, but that just goes the whole thing. We could do an entire show, and we've already done almost an hour of show and haven't even touched any of the topics I want to talk about. We could do an entire show on how marginalized oppression harms, and systemic racism harms black people and harms black people's, health outcomes. Like, black women are more likely to, die in childbirth. Black women are more likely to not be taken seriously about the pain that they're in when they're dealing with their health problems. Black people have worse health outcomes not just because of biology, not just because of issues like sickle cell anemia, but because of things like, poor access to good health care. So yeah, those are lots of things that could affect. So if you have these pre-existing, that's why, you have black people, I think are more likely to have diabetes, because the food, if you're a black person, you're more likely than a white person to be on like food stamps, as judging per capita. I believe that's a correct statement. And if that's a correct statement, we could search that real quick. Let's see, likelihood of being on food stamps by race. So SNAP recipients represent different races or ethnicities. White people are on food stamps. The amount of people of the amount of people that are on food stamps, white people represent 37% of the people on food stamps. Black people represent 26% of the people who are on food stamps, which means that if you're black, black people are more likely to be on food stamps than are white people, because 26 and 37, that's what? Less than 50% more of people who are on food stamps are white. So it's about maybe like 140% of the black population. But white people make up 7 times the overall population. So you are much more likely to be on food stamps if you're black. So I just verified the information. I made a correct statement on you're more likely to be on food stamps. If you're on food stamps, you're more than likely to having to not be able to get access to the best food, because you have to likely buy the cheaper foods, which means more processed crap, more stuff that's less fresh food, etc. And then when you want to go buy fresh food and buy food that might be seen as being more of a luxury, like, fresh steaks or fresh meat, fresh vegetables instead of canned vegetables, many people who are conservatives will come out and be like, you're just using food stamps to buy yourself gourmet stuff, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, you're more likely to have bad health outcomes if your diet sucks. So yes, there's a whole bunch about living as a black person that's going to cause you to be more prone to have issues with COVID-19 in a vacuum, because of the fact that as a black person, you're more likely than not to have bad health outcomes, and adding COVID to the mix just exasperates that problem. That being said, when the black community went in mass and got the vaccines to make sure that they were helped, those numbers, when it came to the harm that COVID was causing, flipped. And again, for every one person who died in a blue area, 5 people died in a red area. Oh my god, IKEA should make a version of the Resolute desk for Biden to autograph and sell just to watch Trump boil. That would be hilarious. What's up, Diane Russell? Good to see you. Good to see you. And see, I wasn't even paying attention to the chat when I was on my health rant about food and the so again, we agree on a lot of the Chad and I we're agreeing on some of the basic facts, but then you have to just kind of extend those into, well, then why are you not blaming Trump for not doing what he could have done to help save those people, to help save people's lives? I mean, look, Donald Trump, and the more people that were infected, if let's say you were just a carrier and you were asymptomatic, these people are the ones who should have been wearing masks, because masks were to prevent people from spreading the virus from the person wearing the mask to the people around them. And Donald Trump wouldn't even set an example by wearing a mask, simply because he didn't feel like he looked good doing it behind the Resolute desk. If Donald Trump would have embraced masking and said everybody should mask, it's patriotic to mask, and on DonaldTrump.com, I'm going to put up a Make America Mask Again, or Mask America Great Again, or something clever that they could have put on a mask, his sycophants would have ran out and bought hundreds of them and worn them all the time to match their hats. But he didn't. When TFG said let it wash over the country, that's what he meant, wash away the vulnerable. Yep. 5 Eggs has been working on the new computer all day. I'm jealous. No, Dan, while you were not watching, we were all disagreeing with you. Hold on, let me... Chad, I have decided that I will vote for RFK Jr. if he is on my ballot instead of Trump. I mean, you know, that you want to throw your vote away that way, it's fine, but if you don't think... It's the Easy E Network. Roberts voted to overturn Roe v. Wade, right? No. Roberts did not vote to overturn Roe v. Wade. Roberts voted... he wanted to, like, kind of... He was okay with keeping the... He voted to keep the Mississippi law with the 15... and basically shifting Roe's boundary to 15 weeks... But he did not vote to overturn Roe v. Wade. He was not part of the 5 that actually eliminated Roe v. Wade in case of Planned Parenthood. That was the other 5. That was Alito, not Scalia. That was Alito, Thomas, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Barrett. Those were the people that actually overturned Roe v. Wade. Roberts voted, again, to allow the Mississippi law to take place because he didn't feel that it completely... was against the spirit of Roe, even though it kind of was. But he was trying his best. He was trying his best to make sure that the ruling did not eliminate the stare decisis and get rid of Roe v. Wade as law of the land. If the courts would have, if the conservatives in the court would have sided with Roberts, and if it would have been a 6-3 ruling with Roberts writing the opinion, it would have been a much better written opinion because Alito wrote Dobbs v. Jackson's opinion and Alito's stupid. But B, all these laws like Louisiana's law, all these laws like the Ohio law, the Texas law, everything that puts it all the way to birth, none of them would have been able to be passed if Roberts would have gotten his way, because Roe versus Wade would still technically be the law of the land, even if they shifted the date a little bit. So... Alton Gillespie says, good point, LD. I'm not sure what the good point was because there's a slight delay. So I appreciate the fact that you're saying I had a good point. Let's Let's see, Chad. I also agree that Trump could have done better. A lot of people wore incorrect masks, or the particulates smaller and stay in the air quicker, or fall into surfaces quicker. I mean, yeah, at the very, very, very beginning, there were people who were wearing like the just a bandana or something. Now I happen to wear at the beginning when we only had the little paper masks. I had the paper mask and then I had a bandana over the paper mask, just kind of help secure it because it didn't fit very well or whatever. And I felt that it might have given me a little bit extra protection. I don't know, but that was back when we were still kind of in the infancy stage or whatever of the whole thing. But I mean, a lot of the people who argue against the masking sometimes will make the argument that the virus is too small; it'll pass through the cloth. And I'm like, no, it's not the virus doesn't travel by itself. It travels on droplets of spit, and your mask is going to either absorb the droplet of spit or is going to make it so the droplet of spit can't get out beyond your more reasonable area. So yeah, maybe it'll land on the surface, and that's why we had hand sanitizer. But it's not going to be... But people were just not wanting to wear the mask at all, and it annoyed the crap out of me. So... yeah, I know a lot of people that wore the proper mask improperly. You have to wear the surgical mask over your nose. Exactly, as we refer to as dick noses during that time. Let's see, Kevin. Hold on, there's something about food class. What am I missing here from Kevin? I think I'm missing something in the chat that I'm not seeing. See, during the Delta variant, counties that voted for Trump had triple the death rate per capita, even though they were rural and well-spaced. Yep, true. Because the protection of the vaccine helped the blue areas, and as such, the death rates of the people dying in the red areas became now higher than the blue areas. One of the problems with RFK Jr., by the way, Chad, is that I have a video on him as to why he's anti-Semitic. He denies it, but he is. Red states, though, are the states that use the most SNAP, exactly. But just because it's a red state, it doesn't mean you don't have dense black populations. Like New Orleans has a dense black population, but we're a red state. There are other red states like Texas and Florida that are red but have dense population centers that have lots of black people in them. When they gerrymander, they split those areas up so that the Democrats can't get proper representation, but that's another issue. Let's see. Let's scroll down. Had Trump not hid his vaccination and his family's vaccination, he would have saved hundreds of thousands of Republican lives. Probably. Maybe. Although there were some people who even then were like, I like Trump, I disagree with him on vaccines. And that's why Trump took a step back during, I believe it was the 2020, or maybe it was during the 2022 campaign, when he lost or whatever. Or he didn't believe he lost, but he was starting to push. You know, he would basically say, "Hey, I was behind the vaccines being created," but then he would always say, "But I believe you should be able to choose whether or not you want to take one or not." Well, sure, you can choose whether or not to take one or not, but if you don't take one, you should also not be able to choose to come around anybody. So that's right, we did talk about this last time. Here in Illinois, my vote goes to Biden. Regardless, the humor here is that I'm voting for Biden and Dan's voting for Trump. I mean, that is what my vote gets thrown away because Louisiana votes for Trump. That's why we need to move away from the Electoral College, why we need to go to a national popular vote. But, you know. So many without paid sick days would financially be forced to work, hence more unnecessary spreading. That is also true. Oh, Trucker John's in the room. What's up, Trucker John? Go make sure to go subscribe to Trucker John. See, that is correct. Proper hygiene was super important. Wish they would have messaged that earlier harder. I mean, I tried to. I made a song about it. I made a song about COVID. Billy Joel parody, "Stay in or You'll Die Young." You got a nice white gown and something for your. Oh, I forgot the lyric. Oh, what is it? It's in my parodies. If you go to my parodies playlist on Liberal Dan Radio, you'll see, you'll find the "Stay in or You'll Die Young." Oh, it's you got a nice white gown and something for your hospitalization. But did you call on me when you were living in your quarantine? Oh, oh, oh. Sorry. Can a candidate run with a platform that says they will ignore science and do their own research? I don't even think Trump does his own research. He just comes up with wacky ideas like putting light into the body and injecting, he used disinfectant. He didn't say he didn't specifically say inject bleach, but yeah, that's what it would have. There would have been tons of Trump supporters injecting bleach if Trump would have said, "I think we should inject bleach. Take it with your ivermectin." Popular vote, yes. Work out electoral college for the Senate. Well, the problem with the Senate is that even if you want to look at what the founding fathers wanted, we do not. Even with the House, we don't apportion properly. There should be about 100 more seats in the House of Representatives at least. B, when they created the Senate of being 2 per state and each state having equal representation in the upper house, the difference in population between Rhode Island and Virginia was like 11 times, and that includes the calculation for 3/5 of a person for black people. Now it's between Wyoming and California, it's like 68 times. I don't know if the founding fathers would have done with the Senate what they did if they would have understood that we would have been stupid enough to allow a state be that small population-wise as compared to the largest state population-wise. Well, see, Chad, when I went places and I had to touch things, I would have a little bottle of hand sanitizer with me. So if I had to touch a door and touch things, and if I had to touch my mask, I would always put the hand sanitizer on my hands before adjusting my mask. So, Tim, I did a parody of The Lion Sleeps Tonight with Trump in court called "The Liar Sleeps Upright." Whee! He's dumb today. Whee! He's dumb today. What did you do for a weem away? That's what I want to know. When you like in the courtroom, was it like in the courtroom, the New York courtroom, the liar sleeps upright. In the courtroom, the New York courtroom, the liar sleeps upright. But what did you do for a whim away? Was it lock him away, 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 lock him away? Is that right? Is that close? Am I close? Now you're making me want to write my own too, because, you know, once I get started on that, I can't stop. Thank you, Easy E. Did you catch COVID? Yes, multiple times. I did. I caught COVID January of 2020. I'm saying it was COVID because the doctor said it was a virus that was not the flu. What other viruses that were not the flu that were going through the area at the time? I had COVID. Fortunately enough for me, nobody else in my household got COVID when I got COVID. They were lucky. Or either that, they didn't get symptoms. Maybe. So there's that. I got COVID once. My youngest son got COVID and gave it to the rest of us. Now he was asymptomatic. He had no symptoms whatsoever. He was jumping up the walls and just happy that he didn't have to go to school, because this is when they went back. He brought it home to both me and my wife, and so we both had COVID. Fine. I think that was like really close to when we went on a cruise, and we tested negative for the cruise like just in time. So, and then I got it another time on a cruise ship. But that time, nobody else in the household got it except for my mother-in-law. So when she had to go back to the hospital, they had to put her in isolation or whatever, because and a negative pressure room, because she had COVID and we couldn't visit her until she tested negative for COVID. So I think the correct number of the amount of times that I've gotten COVID is maybe 3. Mish, now I have to listen to real music. Are you calling my parodies not real music? I am insulted. I am insulted. TV2 Live, I'm going to remake Tay Shake It Off. Trumpy lost. Funny. Agoff, I'm a proud COVID virgin. I mean, my oldest son has never had it. At least never tested positive for it. Like when we were sitting there and we were sitting there and we were in the house, me, my youngest, and my wife, we basically told my son, go up to your room and just hang out there, because don't get anywhere near us because we don't want you getting sick too. And he loves sometimes just being a little hermit in his room and not having to socialize sometimes. It was like a dream. Like, he's kind of a huggy kid too, so maybe he had to miss out on the huggy. But like, I remember when I took that test that time, and I because I was feeling like bleh, and so I took the COVID test. I put it in the test thing, and they say wait 10 minutes. Oh, it was bright lines, full solid colored lines, like immediately. The test was like, there ain't no question, you got COVID, bruh. Jeff, I've been trying to get son to do a parody video with me of Rico Suave, just as a Lone Ranger in Tonto, called Kimo Sabi. Kimo Sabi. Dude. Odor. Cynthia, odor in the court, odor in the court. Hilarious. That's great. See, I was able to get, with my parodies that I've had, like I had a couple of Hamilton parodies, and I was able to get some of my friends to do background singing for me, so I could actually put, like, you know, I had the one with the Judah Maccabees, and instead of the Alexander Hamilton's like, Alexander Hamilton, or was it Guns and Ships? I did Oil and Wicks, and I had the people doing the background music. I had people doing the background music for We'll Fight Back, for the show that they'll call Liberal Dan Radio or whatever, which the first Liberal Dan patron, Demonox, used to like play that song all the time, like, and subject his coworkers to my parody of You'll Be Back. So Chad, I got it once when I was in the hospital for surgery, but didn't even notice had it. Small grade fever, never vaccinated, wore mask, wash hands obsessively. Well, why were you never? Did you still never get vaccinated? I mean, and why? Why did you not get vaccinated if you haven't? I mean, was it a choice matter, or was it a you can't take vaccines because of other issues matter? But then again, you live in Illinois, so Illinois probably had better vaccination rates than other areas, so that's good for you, right? Shingles caught last year, neither refund. Ooh, I bet. Change owner of a lonely heart into this is what happens. This is what happens when you fart. What about maker of a courtroom fart? Maker of a courtroom fart. Remember when Rudy farted in the middle of a hearing as well? Sir starts a lot. He likes to fart and he always lies. See, that's good. That's also a good one, Diane. And you other Republicans can't deny when the Trump walks in with not so any waist and an orange paint on his face. Whatevs. Hey, Steven Sayers, what's going on? Let's leave yes out of it. Do a Rush song. Not Limbaugh, but the band Rush from Canada, hey. To represent, Big Hook, the Great White North with the Canadian heroes, Rush. We should play the People's Court theme when Trump is in court. Dur, dur, dur. This is the defendant, Donald Trump. He's been accused of catching and killing of political stories and paying off people to not get in trouble for election interference. He's been charged with... There's got to be something. Like, how People's Court would make the joke at the end. He's been charged with blah, 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 blah. He's been charged with grabbing him by the whatever. I don't know. Remember when Trump gassed out Diane Feinstein? Her face as all was that he gassed her out, or just was his diaper leaking? By the way, shouts out to TV2 Live. Thank you for joining us as well. Go subscribe to the TV2 Live site as YouTube page as well. Let's see if I can find this I've been trying to find the text of the law. Will MAGA start that civil war they want, or when Trump goes to jail? I don't know. That's the thing, is that a civil war might be very hard to do, simply because of the fact that you don't have states versus states when it comes to, the populations I think are much more diverse, even in red states, where, probably back in the Civil War days, you probably had much more of the population of the southern states like, yeah, let's kick out them Yankee scum. But nowadays, you have tons of people who live in New Orleans and live in other parts of Louisiana that, wouldn't ever want to split from the United States. I wouldn't want to. In fact, I would think that the city of New Orleans would want to stay with the United States of America, which that would be an interesting thing. What would happen if the United States of America and if there was some sort of civil war and Louisiana was like, we secede from the United States, and New Orleans was like, fuck you, no we don't, we're part of the United States. Like, can you imagine that battle that might happen? Because New Orleans is a port, and Louisiana wouldn't want to lose the port of Orleans because it would want to have access to that port. Meanwhile, New Orleans would be like, hell no, we ain't joining with you dumbasses. F you. Think the Civil War by A24. Is that new Civil War movie that just came out? I haven't seen it yet, so I wouldn't know. I might wait for it to come out on Netflix or Max or whatever it is that it comes out on. Adam West. What's up, Adam Westish? See, Rush, Tom Sawyer, and Subdivisions. I have to say, you have to say Subdivisions like that for Alex Lifeson's Subdivisions. In the high school halls, in the shopping malls, conform or be passed out. Subdivisions. I can't get as high as Getty though. It's not me. I know Hal can do Geddy Lee. I've heard him do Geddy Lee sometimes on his show, and I'm very impressed when Hal does Geddy Lee, because I can't. It's just, I can't. Like, I could probably just like, oh, I'm salesman, but like, I can't really do it. Same with Michigan, though we may not be as important as New Orleans. I think Michigan is important electorally, at least, not necessarily. I don't know about the port issues and how the Michigan ports are dealt with as they pertain to the New Orleans port. But yeah, New Orleans, you got the port. We're on the mighty Mississippi. there are plenty of things that come up the north. What might happen though is like, if New Orleans were to be like, we secede, and if the federal government was like, don't you dare do anything, Louisiana, we'll protect New Orleans, they'll just build another port like downriver, and be like, okay, well, we got your port now, and then the port of New Orleans becomes irrelevant. Then are you stuck as a New Orleans citizen inside? As a United States New Orleans citizen inside the red state that is Louisiana? That's why civil wars happen, is because, people secede, but then you have American citizens stuck in the blue areas or what have you. When we run out of Greek variation names, you can switch to hieroglyphs. Are you vaccinated against Amon-Ra III? That's kind of funny, though. Yeah, Michigan is critical for car manufacturing. Lake Michigan is huge for Canadian trade. Chad, my wife got vaccinated and messed up her menstruation horribly. She ended up with COVID anyway. She regretted it. I mean, I got vaccinated as well, and I also got COVID. But I don't know why that's starting. These new earphones. Stop it. These new I can't touch these when we're live, because if I hold on. Did I screw this up? Properties. No, it's still there. For some reason, if I touch this one, it starts playing the music, and I want to have the music open so I can actually have it, ready to go when the show closes. The Great Lakes have access to the Atlantic. All right. But anyway, COVID, not all vaccines work in a way that makes it so that it's completely prevents you from getting it. The vaccines make it less likely for you to get it. If you get it, it's less likely to put you in the hospital. And if for some reason you still go to the hospital, you're less likely to die from it. That's how it works. So it gives you protection, even if it's not 100% protection. You're more protected from it. And your infection is, and if you are infected, your infection is likely to be going to be shorter, and as such, you're less likely to transmit. So it affects everybody. Tim, hurts my ears, but Hal does it because he always does it so loud. Yes, he has great pipes, but I like to hear him do something that doesn't go all out. That's what usually that's one of the reasons why some of my initial parodies that I did during the pandemic were not as good as I think they could have been, because there were people sleeping in the house when I was recording them, and I didn't want to wake them up, so I couldn't go like with when I did Stand or You'll Die Young. I'm sitting there and I'm like saying with Alora, you got a nice white gown and whatever for your hospitalization. And normally I probably would have went louder with it and gone all out with it, and it probably would have been better, because a lot of the things, like when I was Uber driving one time, I was having a conversation with somebody who was a singer, who did singing. I don't know how professional the person was, but we were talking about karaoke and how I enjoyed doing karaoke. And I said, well, there's some songs that I try and sing and I can't hit the high note. And the person was like, when you have that issue, when you're not hitting that high note like you want to, the way to solve that problem is to overshoot it. Like, force yourself to think that you're going over it, and then you'll hit it. And it worked. And I was able to actually get Audio Slaves Like a Stone done well enough, I guess, because I took that lesson to heart. The male falsetto requires projection. I mean, I guess it does. I mean, I guess I could probably when I was doing whee, that's a falsetto, and that's not necessarily too much projection there. I'm still very amused when I was on one of the cruises. I think it was in January of 2019. We went on a Royal Caribbean cruise, and some of the people who were in the band asked me how I was able to do both Louis Armstrong and the high parts of Take On Me. And I was like, just keep your mouth well hydrated, have lots of liquids. But I was sitting here thinking to myself internally, you're the professional musician, not me. Why are you asking me for advice? I appreciate it, though. But I take it as a big compliment. But yeah, no, I'm not the... not necessarily the music expert, especially in my family. There are much more talented musicians on my dad's side of the family. Big Hook, you're torturing the dogs, Dan. She's fine. Easy E Network, staying alive. Staying alive. You know, that sort of thing. I don't know if I would do Staying Alive in karaoke. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe if I was drunk, I'd do it. The way Adam West issued some menstrual disturbance is possible with some vaccines. Like, I'm sitting here like I've sensed a menstruation disturbance in the falls. See, I get it, but there's been areas of agreement. Venn diagram of chat, not a bad thing. Yeah, that's true. We should do, what is it? When we're just Staying Alive, we make a parody of Staying Alive for Donald Trump. Tell some lies, tell some lies, tell some lies. Don't quit your day job. Well, clearly I've not yet, so we're good. Roy Orbison hit every note in 8 octaves. Yeah. I was just talking about him the other day, because, like, we're listening to some Traveling Wilburys on the radio as we were driving around. And I don't know their whole catalog, but there's, 2 of their songs. End of the Line. Handle with Care are two of my top songs that Mish, lots of things can cause menstrual disturbance, just saying. That's true. Easy, I'm not a huge Bee Gees fan, but they can sing the high notes. Funny thing is, you watch some of these reaction videos and you find groups of like minorities, like black people in particular, watching Bee Gees, and all of a sudden they start watching a Bee Gees video, and then they see the Gibb brothers come out, and they're like, "What? I didn't realize that they were white." And it's like, "What? Where have you been?" But it's funny just to see people reacting to new music. It's actually, one thing that I would love to do with Nimbus Yosh, the host of the most, with the smooth sounds of the Percy podcast, which I think is being renamed, but I don't know. He hasn't done it in a while, though, so I find sometimes it's a little difficult to refer to the smooth sounds of the Percy podcast when there hasn't been the smooth sounds of the Percy podcast for a while now. But one of the things I'd love to do with him is to make some videos where we kind of expose each other to music that we think the other person doesn't know, just to see what assumptions we make based on, who we are. And some of them I'll be like, yeah, I know that song, or maybe he won't be, but like I also want, like, sometimes when you see people like listening to something new and they just instantly start enjoying it, and they get that like kind of stink face on, or it's just like, damn. Like, I like watching those types of videos where people are getting exposed to new music and are enjoying the new music they haven't been exposed to previously. Some of the best YouTube channels that are not political are like that. And one of the other things that I like watching is just people reacting to Tropic Thunder, because it's such a good movie. But you see, there was one I was watching, and the people, two of the things is, when do they realize that it's Robert Downey Jr., and when do they realize it's Tom Cruise? Just like, they'll be like, wait, is that Tom Cruise? And then they're like, it's hilarious. There was one I was watching, and they didn't catch either of them until like a little bit later. Like, usually people know going in the part that Robert Downey Jr. plays, and then it's also funny to watch people who, are watching it, and then they'll forget that it's Robert Downey Jr. because he does such a good job with the role. Do. Believing in BS isn't diversity. Exactly, Adam Westish. Very good point. To Chad, in my opinion, we can only become more informed by conversing with more people of opposing views instead of just staying in like-minded bubble. I mean, I agree with that to a point. Like, I do feel that talking to people from the other side of the aisle can be important, because maybe we can get a better understanding of why we believe the way we believe, and so we are not necessarily as horrible to each other as sometimes we are when it comes to people who we disagree with. But there are some things that are not simple matters of disagreement either, like, you know, just the right of trans people to live, for example, shouldn't be debatable, but yet there are plenty of people who oppose trans issues to their very core of their being, and it's hard to have conversations with people who are like that. Now, sometimes I'll still do it on the show, like when we had other more, you know, die-hard conservative types on the show that people have complained about, because I also think it's important to be able to have those discussions out in the open, to show people how to have the debate, and how to have the debate in a way that is, you know, educates people around you as to why the other people are so very wrong. So, let's see. What else? Long live the B-sides. Yes, long live the B-sides. Meanwhile, I've been sitting here trying to find the actual text of the damn actual law that Biden signs TikTok ban. Because I want to start talking about that soon, because it's been an hour and a half and we haven't even touched any of the things I wanted to talk about. But one of the things, before I actually find the actual text of the bill, which is that, you know, yeah, Biden signed a bill banning TikTok in 270 days, which can be extended by another 90. So TikTok has at least another year to live as it is, whilst it tries to find a buyer. Now, people don't believe that the sale is going to necessarily be easy. Let's see, ByteDance owns the engine of TikTok. It's hyper-personalized algorithm that pulls people in and keeps them highly engaged with their feed. Chinese officials have placed content recommendation algorithms on what is known as an export control list, meaning the government has additional say on how the technology is ever sold, which could be a problematic. Senator Markey, lawmakers from both parties have argued that TikTok poses a national security risk to Americans, since the Chinese government could use the app to spy on Americans or influence what U.S. users see on their TikTok feeds, something that has gained new urgency in election year, but some have pushed back, including Ed Markey of Massachusetts. He said on the Senate floor Tuesday that there's no credible evidence that TikTok presents a real national security threat just because its parent company is based in China. National intelligence laws in China would require ByteDance to hand over data on Americans if authorities there sought it, but TikTok says it has never received such a request. Markey said concerns about digital security, the mental health of young people, and data privacy should be addressed with comprehensive legislation encompassing the entire tech industry, not just TikTok. TikTok poses a serious risk to the privacy and mental health of our young people, but that problem isn't unique to TikTok. Certainly doesn't justify TikTok ban. American companies are doing the same thing too. And that's one of my points that I would make. The same kind of point that Senator Markey made when it comes to TikTok is that don't make it specific to TikTok. Put the requirements on everybody. Because as soon as Musk took over Twitter, like my Twitter feed was, before Musk took over Twitter, my Twitter feed was mostly crazy leftists, people who are much farther to the left than I am, and I'd be arguing with them over leftist stuff. That was my Twitter feed before Musk took over. Now that Musk has taken over, my Twitter feed is all conservative right-wing stuff and debating those people on the issues. It's crazy how much the tweak of change of ownership can cause the algorithms to have the tweaks that they might want to have. And of course, Elon Musk wants people to fight on his site, because by doing so, it means that you have more impressions. By more impressions, you can sell more ad revenue, etc., etc., etc. So I wish a liberal billionaire or fund would buy TikTok. So many people depend on it. A lot of people depend on it. I mean, a lot of people use it. And now Hal is very much opposed to TikTok, but I think Hal is opposed to TikTok because of the social engineering aspects of it, like how they drive like conservative things to your feed, or they might drive, you know, misinformation to your feed, and they don't do a very good job at combating the misinformation. You have, you know, there's rampant anti-Semitism on TikTok as well when it comes to issues pertaining to Israel and Gaza, and the arguments that are made by a lot of the people on TikTok that I've seen. Granted, the algorithms are meant to drive me to see people who I'm going to disagree with, so I engage with them and argue with them and fight with them. But that's also the same thing that Twitter's doing. So I don't know. So Chad, Steve's studies came out a year later, but was suspicious long before it was confirmed. Yeah, only mods, Steve is right, only mods can post links, it would vanish. Mark Cuban is who I'm hoping for to buy TikTok. I mean, maybe he will. I mean, it would be funny to see like the owners of TikTok going on Shark Tank, trying to hawk TikTok on Shark Tank to somebody. Be like, hey, we have this great piece of this application that you can use to drive people towards whatever you wanted to drive them to. Buy my TikTok, and then you'll have all the people arguing. You have the Mark Cuban will be like, I'll give you $5 billion and X percent ownership or royalty rights or whatever, like, you know, however the show works. Hal calls every time I've heard Hal talk about TikTok. I've heard him refer to it as malware, not spyware. It's possible that it could be Temu that you're thinking of, and there are people with different opinions. I have a friend of mine who does digital security who is very, 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 very overly cautious about seeing what apps are allowed in his household, and because some of them will send like traffic to different countries, and like, why are you sending the traffic to these different countries? Why is this happening? And he'll be very, very picky about it. And he does not allow Temu on any of the devices in his house. Whereas TikTok he's fine with, because he doesn't see the same issues with where the traffic gets routed as opposed to Temu. I was talking about Temu a little bit yesterday because I have bought things off of there. My thing with Temu is, you know, I don't know what stuff that people could spy on me for, and how much of a benefit they would gain by spying on my little old me's phone. But Temu has clothes that fit my fat ass. And not just solid black, solid color t-shirts. Like, often the life of a very obese person is, when you find clothes that are your size, it's usually like solid color t-shirts. I have lots of different fun themed t-shirts that I've gotten off of Temu that fit me, and if for some reason they don't fit me, they refund me immediately. So I have a hard time accepting an argument of thing being purely good or purely bad when I wish, and you could buy these things for relatively cheap as well, because I can't find some clothes that I would want to normally wear in my size on other websites, because that's my life as a fat man. So if I'm taking the risk of getting items that you know, if I'm putting my phone at risk to deal with, to be able to be comfortable in my skin, I prefer being comfortable in my skin. So maybe we should encourage more companies to sell more fun clothes to fat people. So, yeah, Steve, I tend to sometimes miss things as the scroll randomly scrolls. Yes, I don't know if I talked about this, Agoff Twitler, on Monday or not. I might have gotten to it or not, but yeah, the Republicans in Louisiana here, as part of Jeff Landry's fascism across Louisiana tour. Thank you for bringing that up. Is that they want to end child protection, child labor, Louisiana law text. It's ridiculous. Here we go. 5 days ago. New bill could change child labor laws. The bill passed through committee 10-3, so now it is headed to the full House. Right now in Louisiana, any child who decides to get a job is required to take a 30-minute break if they work for 5 hours. But a proposed bill being considered by the Louisiana legislature is looking to change that. The bill proposed by Representative Roger Wilder would repeal the current law so there would be no requirements. The bill is about maximizing employment and providing employers with the workforce.
This is a show.
Silly ads. Wilder says the break shouldn't be a requirement. Instead, he says children should be able to choose to take a break, both because they should be treated as adults and because they are losing wages. The wording here is that we're here to harm children. That's the wording. Give me a break. They're young adults, Wilder said. The emancipation age is 16. You're allowed to marry at 16. You're allowed to drive at 16. These are all adults' actions. Nick Felton with the AFL-CIO opposes the bill and says minors who choose to work are not adults. Plus, he's saying taking away breaks from kids can be harmful. At the end of the day, they're still kids. Their bodies are still growing. Their minds are still growing. They need our protection. The bill passed through committee 10-3 is now heading to the full House. Now, who is Roger Wilder? Roger Wilder, Louise. I know. Let's see. Because Roger Wilder there's a particular reason why he might want to. Let's see. He's been a part of the Denham Springs communities for 2 decades. He's a small business owner, entrepreneur, and philanthropist. This is it. Roger Wilder owns 19 Smoothie King franchises. I wonder why Roger Wilder wants to not be able to have kids to take breaks. Could it be because he could then make his Smoothie King franchise workers work longer hours without breaks? Is that why he wants to do it? I mean, it's kind of suspicious that he, the owner of 19 Smoothie King franchises, is now wanting to have children work for him with no breaks. Screw you, Roger Wilder, and your Smoothie King franchises. There are people now in New Orleans who are basically like, we should take the name of Smoothie King off the Smoothie King Center, which is the New Orleans arena where they play Pelicans basketball, because of the fact that this idiot wants to use his position in government to benefit his businesses by allowing him to be able to work his children employees to the bone. Big hook. No lunch breaks or disability benefits or child labor is hurt in Louisiana. Lose your sanity. Yep. Cynthia, in the Song of Devo, smash that like. Do 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 do. Smash that like. Do 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 do. Easy E, you're not allowed to drink or smoke till 21 though. Well, in Louisiana, but right before I turned 21, they changed it from 18 to 21. But yes, and 18-year-old is 18 is for some things, 21 is for some things. So the idea that all of these things should be at 6. I mean, he would not propose, I'm sure he wouldn't support changing the voting age to 16 in the state of Louisiana, because that would just automatically make lots more young voters be able to vote, which would harm Republicans greatly. He don't want that. He don't want that at all. Jeff Curry. Yes, you're here. I see you. I see you, Jeff. I worked for a boss who brought coffee and lunch and then another coffee in the PM because it kept everyone at the work site. I mean, there are people who are addicted to coffee who might look forward to that, but still, not if you're 15, 16 years old, 17 years old. So, let's see. Let's see. U.S. SCOTUS hears arguments on abortion. We'll talk about that for a second. Legal age for marriage in Louisiana. I mean, technically you can get married at 16 if you're emancipated, but I think otherwise it would normally be 17, because 17 is the age of majority in Louisiana, because 17 is the age of consent in Louisiana. It used to be that you had to be 18 to be convicted of, the full-on felony and be treated as an adult in the courtroom. But they changed that back to, used to be that you had to be, like, people under 18 couldn't be treated as adult unless it was particular circumstances, and but the prosecutors had some discretion as to when they could make an exception to that rule based on the heinousness of the crime. Now they flat out have taken that away and said, okay, you're 17, you can go to jail you can be tried as an adult for anything. Because again, that was part of Louisiana's special session on criminal reform. Let's see. This is a listen live. We don't want to listen live. Or do we want to watch live? There's 8 hours of Supreme Court hears arguments in emergency. I don't know if I want to talk about that too much. I just want kind of a Washington Post. Of course, conservative justices appear skeptical that federal law requires emergency abortion care. A divided Supreme Court seemed skeptical Wednesday that federal law can require hospitals to provide emergency abortion care in states with strict abortion bans on the procedure in the latest battle over access to abortion since the High Court overturned Roe v. Wade. Let's show more. Throughout 2 hours of arguments, only the court's 3 liberal justices strongly backed the Biden administration's view that a 40-year-old emergency care law preempts Idaho's strict ban, which imposes penalties up to 5 years in prisons on doctors who perform the procedure, with an exception when necessary to prevent the death of a pregnant woman. Of course, these types of laws force people to get to the point where it's almost death in order to have their lives be saved. You should be able to have a procedure if the doctor believes if this is allowed to proceed further, it will cause the person to risk death, and you should be able to do that procedure at that time. Liberal justices repeatedly raised detailed, harrowing examples of women facing health emergencies short of death, including infertility and kidney failure. She said pregnant women in Idaho were being forced out of state for emergency abortion care in violation of federal law. Conservative justices, who make up a majority of the court, pushed back on the Biden administration's interpretation of the Emergency Medical Treatment and Labor Act and suggested that federal government cannot force private hospitals that receive federal funds to violate a state's law. How can you impose restrictions on what Idaho can criminalize, says Justice Samuel Alito Jr., asked to the Solicitor General. Prelogar says Idaho rule undermines the entire point of federal anti-dumping law. That's something else completely different. Let's flip over to PBS. Conservative Supreme Court justices appear skeptical, blah, 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 blah. Case marks the first time the Supreme Court has considered the implications of the state ban since overturning nationwide right to abortion. It comes from Idaho, which is among 14 states that now ban abortion in all stages of pregnancy, with very limited exceptions. The High Court has already allowed the state ban to go into effect, even medical emergencies. It was unclear that whether members of the conservative majority were swayed by the Biden administration's argument that the federal law overrides the state in rare emergency cases where a pregnant patient's health is at serious risk. The closely watched case tests how open the six-justice conservative majority is to carving out limited exceptions to state abortion bans. Their ruling, expected by late June, could have wide implications amid a spike of complaints that pregnant women have been turned away from emergency rooms since Roe was overturned. Sam Alito, who wrote the decision overturning Roe v. Wade, was doubtful. How can you impose restrictions on what Idaho can criminalize simply because hospitals in Idaho have chosen to participate in Medicare? Why am I not surprised that Justice Alito would make such an argument? How can you impose restrictions on what Idaho can criminalize? Well, because there's a supremacy clause. There's the fact that the person's right to life, the individual's right to life should be paramount among everything else, and the state of Idaho can't deny individuals equal protection under the law. And if you are facing death from various other ailments, you should be able to get medical treatment, and you're not going to be denied medical treatment in Ohio. But people who are having to deal with a difficult pregnancy and having to make the terrible decision as to whether or not they want to terminate the pregnancy that was wanted in the first place, but they no longer can maintain the pregnancy because there's a risk to the health of the person who's pregnant, then guess what? You're denying that individual equal protection under the law. How did Justice Alito ever become a lawyer, let alone a judge? Let alone a justice on the Supreme Court? Does he know where certain bodies are buried? I don't know. But this guy is so freaking stupid when it comes to everything, especially on this things. Idaho contends his ban does have exceptions for life-saving abortions, but all of these bans have exceptions for life-saving abortions, but they're not written well enough so that the hospitals are concerned as to whether or not they can actually perform particular abortion procedures, because they don't know if they've dotted enough I's and crossed enough T's to make sure that the abortion procedure in this particular case is going to be allowed, and they don't want to take the risk of performing an abortion that ends up not being allowed and then have the doctor go to jail for 5 years like they would in Idaho. Ridiculous. See, with these rare cases, there's a significant number where the woman's life is not in peril, but she's going to lose reproductive organs. She's going to lose the ability to have children in the future unless an abortion takes place. Conservative Justice Amy Coney Barrett, meanwhile, said she was kind of shocked that an attorney from Ohio appeared to hedge when asked whether the state would allow abortions in cases like those. Attorney Joshua N. Turner responded that doctors can use their good faith medical judgment under Idaho's life-saving exception, but Barrett continued to press, what if the prosecutor thinks differently? Turner acknowledged that a doctor could face a criminal case in that situation. Performing an abortion outside of the limited exceptions in Idaho is a felony punishable up to 5 years in prison. So it would be amazing if Amy Coney Barrett joins the liberal justices on this, but that's not enough to stop them from being a giant court full of windbagged dickheads. Abortion opponents say doctors have mishandled maternal emergency cases and argue the Biden administration overstates health care woes to undermine state abortion laws. No. Any law that puts any single person at risk of death or loss of any bodily function, major or otherwise, is abhorrent and should be considered morally abhorrent to anybody who cares about personal autonomy and individual rights. But these hypocrites refuse to see it because hypocrisy is a conservative prerequisite. See, the federal judge initially sided with the administration and ruled that abortions were legal in medical emergencies. After the state appealed, the Supreme Court allowed the law to go into fully into effect in January. Outside the court, dueling protesters gathered with signs like "Abortion saves lives" from one side and "Emergency rooms are not abortion clinics" from the others. Inside, the audience was sparse, though, with several benches empty or sparingly used. Probably because people knew they wouldn't be able to keep their mouths silent. But for all of these abortion cases that come through, and as the Republicans in Congress, as the conservative justices are forced to reveal themselves and say the quiet stuff out loud, it just continues to actually help Democrats in the fall. I'd rather them not have to be helped by those things. I'd rather not have a situation where we have state laws that are so draconian that they would force somebody to risk pregnancy, risk giving birth, or even go through with continued gestation when you know that the pregnancy is doomed and continued gestation is going to harm the patient in general. You know, this shouldn't be what a conservative is about, but it's turned into what conservatism is about when it pertains to bodily rights, individual rights, etc., etc., etc. What's up, Robin M? Good to see you. Thank you for joining us. Hey, Kerosene Kara as well. Thank you so much for joining. Please remember, anybody who hasn't liked or subscribed, please remember to like and subscribe. It always helps the algorithm. And also remember to continue to comment and like on other videos that are not live threads, because that also will help the algorithm. That'll get me up to 1,000. I'm well past the 4,000 needed to get the next level of partner. All I need is like 30-something more subs, and then we'll be at 1,000. So... Big hook. It should never been a state's decision. What you and your doctor decide is private. If you don't like abortion, then don't have one. You live your life. I'll live mine. Mind your own business, period. Amen. Mic drop. Big hook. Big hook. Right. We should not be legislating rights. It should absolutely be between the patient and their doctor. Because the myth of the late-term abortion is just that. Nobody is waiting until 6-7 months in to be like, oh, I feel like having an abortion now. No, those are not the people having late-term abortions. The people who have a late-term abortion, i.e. third trimester abortion, are people who are wanting to have a baby, but yet a medical condition prevents them from doing so, and they have to have a procedure done to save their own lives, save their health, etc. To force them to not be able to do that should be considered morally abhorrent to anybody who believes in individual rights and freedoms. But, you know, it is what it is. Doop-a-doop-a-doo. Let's see, they're upgrading some of the maps, are constantly freezing in chat, blah, blah. Mrs. V was just listening with me the first time. She says, well done, Dan. Thank you so much, Mrs. V. Appreciate you. Thank you for joining. Go ahead and you subscribe as well if you haven't done so. We're aiming to get the 1,000 mark. I have a medical condition due to wanting to carry or give a man a baby, which is just biology messing with my head. Chad Bostic, maybe it shouldn't be up to the states or federal government. Let each doctor decide how they would administer care. Just a thought. Yes! Amen, exactly. It should be between the doctor and the patient, and that's it. But conservatives have made this into a big deal of nothing, because 99.5% of all abortions take place before the 22nd week or the 20th week or somewhere between there. And again, the only minority of abortions that take place that are late term or third trimester abortions are those that are done that are medically necessary, done by people who wanted to have a baby but have to not have a baby because nature said F you. And it's cruel to force somebody to gestate to term and then have to watch the baby that they knew that they was going to die because of some skull issue die in front of them, where they could have just taken care of it months before when they knew there was a problem. But no, Republicans can't handle that idea. So DNCs are required for various female issues that don't require a fee. Same procedure as an abortion. They don't even know or understand that. They don't even know how many holes a woman has. That's also true, that they don't even know how many holes a woman has. I've heard cases where nurses didn't even know how many holes their patient had. It's disgusting. But yeah, but even if you have a miscarriage, An early miscarriage, you usually have to have some sort of DXC or DNC or whatever to remove the products of the pregnancy to make sure that you don't have any infections. You want to make sure that there's no infections after the fact. If you can't, and some of these laws, as they were written, especially earlier on, would have specifically denied people who are fully miscarried from getting the DNC. Maybe, if God wanted us to not have abortions, he should have made it so that humans would only get pregnant when they wanted to, and make sure that all pregnancies were healthy and safe. I knew what you meant, Mish. Blue Bunny soft serve chocolate ice cream baby cake flavored cookie dough. So what? What are we talking about, Jeff, when it comes to the ice cream? Chad, just don't make it where every doctor has to perform it in cases against what they believe. Well, look, here's the deal. The only doctors that are at risk for having to perform an abortion are doctors that work in emergency rooms. So if you want to be a doctor that would know how to perform an abortion, or a surgeon that would know how to perform an abortion, but don't want to, don't set up your OBGYN practice in a hospital. Don't make it so that you can be on call to react to an abortion. There should be some personal responsibility there. Just like the pharmacists that don't want to prescribe birth control pills. Well, don't work as a pharmacist. Or make sure you tell your employer that you won't prescribe birth control pills so that they can have somebody else on staff at the same time who can. Or maybe they'll make the decision, well, we're just not going to hire you because we need to be able to prescribe all these pills, including birth control pills. But there has to be some personal responsibility. It's like if I'm an observant Jewish person and I don't want to work on Saturdays, I would tell my potential employer, hey, I just want to let you know that from sundown to Friday to sundown on Saturday, I can't work because of my deeply held religious beliefs, sincerely held religious beliefs. So if you then try and work me, I can be like, look, you agreed to hire me because I told you I can't work during these hours, so please don't schedule me during these hours. Don't punish me for not being able to show up during those hours when nobody else can show up. But you should be honest about your requirements as from your job at day one. And if they need to hire somebody else who can and will prescribe those things or work those hours to do whatever it is that you need them to do that's against their religion, then guess what? You shouldn't be guaranteed that job. You can find another position. Maybe another position that's more suitable to your liking. Chad Bostic, I agree with that. Good, there you go. We agree on something else. Need to check something real quick. I missed that as I was ranting. Thank you, Jolie, for gifting 10 memberships to the Watchers. I appreciate you bunches, as always. Everybody who got because I noticed that Steve had the little star by his user ID, so I was like, oh, what, did Steve buy it or did someone else buy it for him? And it was Jolie. So thank you, Jolie. Appreciate you again so much for gifting the memberships. Wait, who's saying that Trump observes Passover? I don't believe that Trump would observe It's very well possible that he might show up to his son-in-law's Seder, but I don't think Trump is keeping kosher for Passover. I don't think he's going to have matzah. I don't like unleavened bread. Only the best breads have leavening in them. But yeah, I wouldn't believe that Trump observes Passover either. What's the other thing? Where's the other the other thing we wanted to talk about before we end the show tonight? 11 Arizona fake electors, other former Trump officials indicted in election scheme. N. Cottle, L. Pellegrino, T. Bauer, J. Hoffman, A. Kern, J. Lamont, M. Ward, K. Ward, G. Safston, S. Moorhead, and R. Montgomery. And looking at the pictures, they look exactly as you would expect them to look. Arizona Attorney General Chris Mays announced grand jury indictments for 11 fake electors from Arizona on Wednesday, along with 7 other unnamed defendants who were allegedly part of an alternate elector scheme to overturn the 2020 presidential election. The alleged phony electors are now facing felony counts of fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. News about whether state prosecutors would seek charges for the fake elector scheme has been anticipated for weeks. During a March taping of Politics Unplugged, Mays had told Arizona's family political editor, Dennis and Arizona Family is the website I'm reading from right now, Dennis Welsh, that an announcement was imminent. The indictments include high-profile and powerful politicians, including Kelly Ward, former chairwoman of the Arizona Republican Party, and her husband, 2 current GOP state lawmakers, Jake Hoffman and from Queen Creek, and Anthony Kern from Glendale. Senator Hoffman released a statement shortly after the indictments were announced. Before an investigation had even been conducted and with no evidence, Chris Mays declared that she believed electors such as myself were guilty of a crime. Well, if you're a fake elector, you are. That it is her job to get Biden reelected, and that she would control the timing of the indictment, Hoffman said in an email statement. Now, unsurprisingly, we see that she has weaponized the once respected Attorney General's office. Why is there always weaponization of the office when they're trying to hold Republicans accountable for their bad actions? It's Daily News. What's going on, Daily News? Bringing a boy over from the West Coast, the left coast, if you will, even though you're not left. Terry says that Trump observes pass gas. Everybody sitting next to Trump is like, oh, I wish his gas would pass over. Adam Westish, why won't your comment post? Are you trying to post a link? Because you can't post a link. Good. They all deserve to go to prison for falsifying state and federal documents. Absolutely. Kern, there's no such thing as fake electors. If it was illegal, we wouldn't have done it. Good luck with that argument in court. If it were illegal, we wouldn't have done it. Okay, Jan. Sure, Jan. Crazy ridiculousness. But that should be an interesting thing that should happen. That, hopefully we'll find out good news from that once it's finished. This SCOTUS thing tomorrow had better not go Trump's way. We'll have to literally protest should that fascist BS happen. Chad asked me, have you read the unredacted documents from the Office of Presidential Records yet pertaining to the documents case? Like, which ones in particular? Are there particular unredacted documents? Let's see. Wait, Daily News. Have I heard what Joy Reid said about President Trump? His maybe demise is because of black... I don't know. I would say it's more likely because of women, because women don't like the changes to the abortion laws in this country that Donald Trump is responsible for. I have not heard Joy Reid specifically state that. No, I'm typically not watching MSNBC in those hours when Joy Reid is on, because my wife prefers to watch the more local news during that time. So, let's see. Redacted. I don't know, is unredacted a word? Because redacted means to actually mark something up or to unmark something. So, see, Office, Presidential Records, unredacted, Trump. Let's see what they says. Two days ago from The Hill. Plasmic Echo was the FBI codename for Trump classified documents probe. FBI's codename for its investigation into former President Trump's handling of the classified documents was Plasmic Echo. The name was listed in unredacted court documents filed Monday in the former president's classified documents case. Electronic communication from the FBI included that the court documents list a case ID, which was redacted, followed by the text Plasmic Echo, mishandling of classified or national defense information. File dated February 22nd, 2024 is the FBI's summary of an initial review of the documents that the agency received from the National Archives. It said classified documents were found in 12 of 15 boxes that Trump returned to the archives that year. The summary was among hundreds of pages of exhibits filed by Trump's legal team to outline the former president's attempt to obtain additional records from the federal government for the case. The Hill reached out to the FBI for further comment. The former president is facing 40 charges alleging he mishandled classified records and attempted to obstruct the government's retrieval of those records after he left the White House. Prosecutors alleged that documents contained national defense and weapons information, some of which had top secret markings. The government's retrieval of the more than 300 classified documents featured an FBI search of Trump's Mar-a-Lago property. Trump claimed he designated the records in question as personal under the Presidential Records Act before leaving the White House. Cannon ruled the Presidential Records Act does not provide a pretrial basis to dismiss. Trump is largely being prosecuted under the Espionage Act, which bars the willful retention of national defense information. He also is charged with obstruction of justice for seeking to conceal the records from the authorities after they were demanded, and prosecutors argued the Presidential Records Act had no bearing on Trump's ability to retain the documents. Which is true, because you can keep presidential records, you can't keep other records. Ridiculous. So 315 pages of documents. Holy crap. So no, I have not gone through all 315 pages of this yet. Let's see. During the waning days of the Trump presidential administration, Person 40 expressed concerns to NARA archivist David Fenerick and Deputy Archivist Deborah Steitel, while that PRA material existed in the White House residence which had not been taken to Worm. Those records included approximately 24 boxes, yada, yada, yada. So no, I've not gone through all of this. Oh, that's not the one. Let me see what I can find. Interesting. Okay. No, the document that showed how cooperative he was. Trump. Let's see. Well, there's Trump saying that he cooperated far more than Biden. Well, it's within those. I don't know. So I don't think these are all scanned in, so I'm not going to be able to actually search the text on this page. I'll search the text on here to talk about how supposedly cooperative Trump was or wasn't. But he may very well have been. So here's the thing. I haven't looked at all these, so I don't know if this is the truth or not. I'm going to make not a wager, but I'm going to make an assumption that when files talk about how cooperative Donald Trump was in the whole thing, they're probably talking about the time when he was providing, like, let's say there were 15 boxes left, but they didn't know it was 15 boxes. They knew it was 10. I don't know if those are the right numbers, but Trump then, willingly handing over the 10 boxes or however many they were to there. Maybe at that point they're like, Trump's being very cooperative when it comes to all these documents that he's held. He's handing them all over. Good for Trump. Yay. And then it comes out that he wasn't cooperative at all because he was withholding other ones that he didn't want to release. So that would be my argument as to what I would think that any document saying that he was cooperative would probably be taken inside the context of this is what we're responding to before we knew that Trump was keeping additional documents and moved other documents and hid other documents. Does that make sense? I don't know. Makes sense. Seems to make sense to me. But I'd have to know what the example was in order for me to actually make a determination as to whether or not this is a reasonable claim of Trump is acting so nice and cooperative with this whole thing, and to the point where we are now, where we know that he was hiding stuff. If he's hiding stuff, then he's not really being cooperative. So, anyway, it's 10:15. I think we've covered almost everything I wanted to cover. Okay, but we'll cover this again. So did Biden, says Daily News. Joe Biden had records and then turned them in when they were asked for. He didn't, as far as we know, Joe Biden didn't turn in the records that were asked for, except for a few others that he kept for personal use. As far as we know, Joe Biden hasn't tried to manipulate his lawyers to make it look like, he really did turn in all of the documents when he really didn't turn in all the documents. So no, Joe Biden did not do the same thing that Trump did. If Trump would have done the same thing that Joe Biden did, and if Trump would have been like, oh, mea culpa, here's all these documents, let's return all of them back to you without question. Had he done that, and had they then chosen to go after him in a lawsuit, I would have been critical of it. Because the reason you don't punish the people for giving back all of the information is because you want to encourage the future returning of documents. So if somebody had documents that they weren't supposed to have and then they gave them up willingly, you don't throw the book at them for that. But if somebody had documents weren't supposed to have, they returned some of them, they obfuscated and dealt with other ones a different way, that's different, and that's worthy of punishment. Yes, they had to go to his place when they found them. Probably because he didn't want to move anything, because he didn't want anybody to think that he was violating the law even more. That's why you don't go after the people who simply retain the documents, who then return them without problem. Trump didn't return them all without a problem. Trump held on to a bunch, which is completely different than what Biden did, or what Pence did, for that matter. It's not about protecting Biden. If Biden does wrong, I criticize Biden. You should know that by now. You've been listening to this podcast longer than probably anybody else in the chat. You know that if Biden would have done something wrong, I would have criticized him for it. You know that. Stop being ridiculous. Sadly, we will never know the full extent of damage done to national security by Trump. Probably not. And there'll be something that'll come out that'll hit him on that. Daily News, I would love to hear your opinion on. I would love to hear your opinion on Trump giving the information to Putin, who then gave the information to Iran, who then gave the information to Hamas, who then knew how to get around the Israeli defenses. I'd love to hear that opinion. And also, there's another one I was thinking of. Didn't Trump have a hidden room at Mar-a-Lago that was not searched? Well, we had the bathroom. I don't know how hidden that was. But see you later, Chad. See you Monday. Unless for some reason something crazy zany happens with the Supreme Court tomorrow with the hearings, maybe, or sometime over the weekend, I might find a way to go live a little bit to go over that. But that's not necessarily. I'm not. Usually, I wait for the rulings to come out or at least be leaked before I, go on full steam. Daily News next week. Liberal Dan, no problem. Because there's. The examples of Trump compared to the examples of Biden just don't mesh. But I also, this is the other thing I was brain farting for a second. The whole thing where Donald Trump was talking to like the authors of some book or whatever up in the Bedminster one where he was telling them, here are these documents that I have. I shouldn't be showing you them, but I am showing it to them anyway. I could have declassified them, but I didn't. Look at them. Do you think that was okay for Donald Trump to show those documents that were being discussed in the audio that was revealed? Was it okay for Donald Trump to go ahead and share classified documents with authors? I don't think that was kosher. If Biden would have done what Trump did in that case, y'all would be calling for his head. But because it's Trump, y'all look the other way. It is what it is. Nobody at Mar-a-Lago uses bathrooms, it's diapers. Well done, Jeff. Well done. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and call this the end of this week's episode of Liberal Dan Radio, or today's episode of Liberal Dan Radio. I'll announce it. If I go live, I'm going to plan on go live at some point. I'll make sure to make a post on YouTube. I'll post it on Twitter as well, Liberal Dan Radio on Twitter. All that good stuff. Again, if you haven't liked the video or subscribed to the channel on YouTube, please remember to do so. You can send super chats, super stickers. Remember, look at the pinned links either on Twitch or on YouTube. You can download those games using that link, and if you get your thing to level 7, you get me a little extra bucks. There's like kind of 3 levels again of I can talk about what those levels are. The game trades you. I basically got to level 7 in the game. It took less than 30 minutes, and it got me the $5 from my generating of it. Now there's other people that'll generate it as well, but again, we'll see how we do with that. I was trying to get the Star Trek game going, but they ran out of spots, and I was like, God damn it, why'd you run out of spots? So at this point, we're just going to run with this game for a second, do this 8-day period. If for some reason, maybe early, it turns out that the other one becomes available, maybe I'll end this campaign immediately and then go to the next one, but not before I do a live stream and make sure to dot all my I's and cross all my T's so I can get all the funds that I'm due for it. Anyway. Thank you, Steven, for the super chat or super sticker for $4.99. Appreciate you. Thank you so much. It always means a lot to me when people send the super stickers, especially these weeks where any little bit helps. So, anyway, since we have no real outro music, the first normal outro music, because Blog Talk Radio's crap to bed, we're just going to flip over to this one immediately. Thank you so much. Have a good night. Peace.